Look at this photograph. Taken in 1863. A young mother, 2 infants in her arms. But something here should have been impossible. In Confederate Virginia, a woman like her wasn't allowed to choose anything. Not her future, not her children's fate, not even her own name. Yet she sat for this image on purpose. Determined. Unafraid. And when you see what's hidden on her wrists, everything changes. This is Hannah's story. Stay with me. The photograph surfaced only because Rebecca Turner, a museum curator, won an anonymous, dust-covered box at a Richmond estate sale. She expected routine portraits, but at the bottom, she found her. A young black woman holding twin infants, her face calm, her eyes fierce. Something in that gaze demanded attention. Rebecca scanned the image, enlarging every detail, and then she froze. On the woman's wrists, dark circular scars. Deep, permanent. These weren't accidents. They were shackles. Shackles worn long enough to carve a ring into living skin. But the woman wasn't chained in this moment. She was posed for a portrait she must have chosen. And that raised the question no historian could ignore. How did an enslaved woman, scarred from repeated punishment, sit proudly for a photograph in the middle of the Civil War? Her name appeared in the single fragile line of a plantation diary. Hannah, age 21. House servant, prone to running. That was all. But those 6 words revealed everything. She had tried to escape twice before. She had been chained for it, whipped for it, marked as a habitual runaway. The most dangerous label an enslaved person could bear. It meant constant surveillance. It meant brutal punishment. It meant she had already risked death and then would do it again. And yet, in her photograph, she holds her children with a steady, almost defiant calm. The infants were dressed in neat white gowns. Clean. Matching. Someone prepared them with care. Someone believed this moment mattered. The marks on Hannah's wrists told the story of what she had endured, but the fire in her eyes told the story of what she was about to do. If stories like Hannah's mattered to you, stories of mothers who fought impossible battles so their children could live free, then stay with this journey. And before we go further, do one thing. Subscribe right now. Hit the bell, because Hannah didn't risk everything for her truth to stay buried in a box. We uncover hidden histories like hers every week. Don't miss the justice these stories finally deserve. By matching the photograph's technique to surviving records, one truth emerged. The picture was taken in May 1863-6, days after Hannah escaped from Riverside Plantation with her 3-month-old twins. 30 miles of Confederate territory. No food. No shelter. 2 crying infants, whose every sound could have meant capture or death. Yet here she was alive, unbroken, facing the camera with a will of steel. Why? Because she knew the risk. The photographer knew it too. The Underground Railroad photographed fugitives on the brink of danger so their identities wouldn't disappear if they were caught. Hannah posed for this image because she was preparing for the worst. But she wasn't done fighting, not even close. And it forces the question, what could push one young mother to attempt the impossible one last time? Hannah's escape spread through Richmond faster than wildfire. A young enslaved woman fleeing with twins was unheard of. Patrols combed every road. Riders checked farms, barns, swamps, and when Colonel Whitfield learned she'd slipped past the first search line, his fury turned personal. He posted rewards for her capture, money for Hannah, money for the infants. To him, they were assets. To her, they were everything. As Hannah moved north with the help of hidden allies, word reached her that riders were less than a day behind. They knew her name. They knew her face. And they knew the scars she carried. This was no ordinary chase. This was a hunt. But Hannah refused to turn back. The first attack came near a small abandoned tobacco shed. The underground guides used as a transfer point. Hannah had stopped to feed the twins when she heard horses too many to outrun. She wrapped the babies against her chest and crawled beneath the broken floorboards, heart slamming in her ears. Men dismounted. Boots stomped above her. They cursed her name. They broke crates. They overturned barrels. One man drove a metal hook into the floorboards, dragging it back and forth, inches from her face. Splinters rained around her. The infants stayed silent, as if they understood. Minutes felt like hours. When the riders finally left, Hannah emerged shaking but unbeaten. She didn't collapse. She didn't hesitate. She only whispered to her sons that she would not let the world take them. Her courage grew sharper than fear. By nightfall, word reached the underground guides that the search had intensified. Whitfield had doubled the reward. Local men joined the pursuit. Some wanted money, some wanted cruelty. Hannah knew she couldn't hide again. She had one chance. Push forward through marshland where horses couldn't follow. The mud swallowed her steps. Mosquitoes swarmed. Water rose to her waist. But she held her children high and kept moving. When the ground finally firmed beneath her feet, she realized she had crossed the most dangerous stretch. She wasn't safe, but she was ahead. And it leaves one question burning. How much more could one young mother endure before her strength reached its breaking point? Hannah's progress through the marshes brought her only a small advantage. By the next morning, Confederate patrols had shifted north, blocking the main road. The only possible route to Union lines required passing through a logging settlement known for turning in runaways. Every step toward it felt like stepping into a trap. Exhaustion clawed at her legs. Hunger hollowed her ribs. The twins whimpered from thirst. But the true danger wasn't the land or the hunger, it was the law itself. Any white man who saw her could claim her, bind her, drag her back in chains. And as she approached the settlement's edge, a man stepped out from behind a wagon, rifle in hand. He recognized her instantly. His shout tore through the air. Men ran toward her. She had nowhere to hide, nowhere to run. They grabbed her by the arms before she could shield the twins. The baby screamed as rough hands ripped them from her chest. Hannah fought like someone who had felt the weight of chains before and refused to feel them again. She kicked, she clawed. She beat one man so hard he howled, but 3 others pinned her against a fence. One held her wrists, laughing at the scars that circled them. Another pressed a rope against her throat to cut off her breath. They wanted to break her spirit first, then deliver her back to Whitfield for punishment she would not survive. As her vision blurred, she saw the twins being tossed into a wagon. That sight, more than the rope, more than the pain, struck deeper than any blow. She knew she would rather die than let them be returned to slavery. But just as the rope tightened, a voice shouted from the hill above. The men turned. It was a woman, black, older, standing with a shovel like it was a weapon she'd used before. And she wasn't alone. 2 more appeared behind her, local free families who had seen everything. They stepped forward without fear. The mob hesitated, surprised anyone would risk confronting them. And in that heartbeat of confusion, Hannah tore free, grabbed her sons from the wagon, and ran into the tree line. She didn't look back. She couldn't. And it forces the next question. When the world tries to break someone completely, what choice do they make next? The choice to run, or the choice to rise? Hannah didn't stop running until her legs buckled beneath her. The free families who had intervened led her through a hidden path, avoiding patrols that swarmed the area after the fight. They gave her water. They wrapped the twins in dry cloth, and they told her the truth. Union lines were closer than she believed. Hannah faced a choice no one else could make for her. She could hide longer and risk discovery, or push forward now, while danger still circled her. She looked at her sons, at their tiny hands clinging to her dress, and chose the one thing she had chosen her entire life: freedom. Step by step, she moved toward a future she had never been allowed to imagine. Reaching Union lines didn't end her story. It began the part no one expected. In Philadelphia, Hannah rebuilt her life from nothing. She worked, saved, studied, and shaped a home where her sons could grow without fear. Samuel became a teacher, guiding children toward the literacy he almost never had a chance to gain. Jacob became a writer, using his voice to challenge injustice long after slavery ended. Both men credited their courage to the woman who carried them through a war, through hunger, through night itself. And Hannah's legacy didn't stop with them. Dozens of families she sheltered in her boarding house went on to build new lives, families who still told their children, "A woman named Hannah helped us find freedom." More than a century later, her photograph reads, not as a relic of suffering, but as proof of everything she conquered. Her descendants stood before that same image in a museum, tracing the outline of the hands that once held their entire family future. The truth that had been buried inside an old estate box finally rose into the light. Hannah had escaped. She had saved her sons. She had lifted entire generations with her strength. And it leaves one final question before the closing. What do we owe to those whose courage created the world we stand in today? More than a century after Hannah walked through war, carrying her twin sons toward a life she had never been allowed to imagine, her photograph finally stands where it always belonged, in the open, honored, protected, no longer hidden in a dusty auction box, no longer mislabeled as an identified woman. Today, people read her name. They read her story. They understand that those scars on her wrists are not symbols of defeat, but symbols of the chains she broke. Her journey is no longer a rumor whispered in faded ledgers. It is documented, preserved, displayed, and taught. Her sons grew into men of purpose. Their children and grandchildren built lives she fought to make possible. And now every visitor who stops in front of that small glass case witnesses the truth. Hannah didn't just survive slavery. She crushed the legacy it tried to leave behind. But the deepest justice comes from the lives that followed her own. Samuel became a teacher, shaping young minds with the same determination his mother once used to shield him from danger. Jacob used the written word to challenge systems that tried to silence people like him. Their children became organizers, workers, soldiers, leaders, voters, each generation pushing forward the freedom Hannah carved out with her bare hands. And when her descendants gathered at the museum in 2024, standing shoulder to shoulder in front of her photograph, they weren't just looking at an ancestor. They were looking at the woman who changed the entire trajectory of their family before any of them existed. The woman who refused to bow. The woman who risked everything so that they would inherit a future built on dignity, not chains. Her justice wasn't symbolic. It was real, lived, and passed down through blood. And now her story does what she once hoped it would. It reaches people she would never meet, teaching truths she knew the world needed to hear. And it proved that courage, once chosen, it goes far beyond a single lifetime. If her strength touched you, if her fight for freedom, family, and dignity meant something to you, then subscribe right now. Hit the notification bell so you never miss the next buried story we bring back into the light. Share this video with someone who needs to be reminded that justice is possible, even when the odds are impossible. And tell us in the comments, which forgotten history should we uncover next? Because Hannah's courage deserves to be remembered, her justice deserves to be honored, and the truth she carried through the darkness will keep guiding every story we tell.